Okay, so I'm trying to think of some things that might have gone wrong for you color-wise. I actually finally found what I was trying to do yesterday when I was mumbling around about inverting stuff, and it might not be this, but I don't know if it's something that you might have done by accident. If you touch on a layer, you get a whole host of layer options. Um, I don't know, and if like what I was looking for was this invert one here, where it would turn my black pencil sketch into a white pencil sketch if I had a black background behind it. And if you do that to any kind of color layer, it's going to turn it into like a negative image. So I don't know if that's possible, or just whether or not you may have inadvertently somehow bumped into one of the layer options without meaning to. Um, Outside of that, I mean, there's all kinds of other things you could accidentally do, but they would be within these other options. So I'm not too sure. It is very easy to end up drawing on the wrong layer by accident. I do it all the time if I go and change the opacity or something on a layer and then forget that I'm still on that layer, or I'll wonder why what I'm drawing is really faint, only to then realize it's because I'm on a layer that has low opacity instead of the layer that I want to be on, and things. And then so the easiest way to just double check is to turn bits on or off, and it'll show you what's on that layer before you end up accidentally getting rid of a layer that may have something you need to keep on it. Just thinking, if it keeps happening, what you can do, the screen recordings I normally do, if I go out and go into settings, if you go into your control center, you can add this screen recording tool. I think by default it will still be in this bottom list, but you can add it, and then that means if you go up here where the battery is, or maybe drag down from the battery, okay, you get this screen recording button, and that's what I've been doing to record the videos on the screen to show what's happening. So you could do that if something were going wrong, and then send me the video, because it'll, when you stop the recording, you go back in there and stop the recording in the same place, it would drop that recorded video into your photos, and you could send that on to me. If it wound up being a big file, it'll give you the option to send as a mail drop, so then it just sends me a link that I could download that video from. What else? Or within Procreate, any drawing, you can go to the wrench symbol and pick share from this list, and then you could send it to me as a Procreate file, the top one, or even as a PSD, but a Procreate file would be fine. And then when I get it, it will keep the layers. Whereas if you send it as like a JPEG or these kind of things, it flattens it, like it just makes it all one picture, and you can't use the layers anymore. What was I going to do? Oh, I was gonna do one filming this for smudging, because I suddenly realized watching some of the videos back, you're just seeing stuff blur on screen and it's not actually showing you in any way what I'm doing. So if I, maybe on this drawing, if I turn some of the layers, if I turn the background back to white for starters, okay, and turn some layers back off, turn off that. Okay, and what I was meaning to do yesterday, I probably still won't do this now, but I filled that in black and suddenly I couldn't see my pencil sketch, but I finally found that invert thing. If I go in there now and do invert on my pencil drawing, it now makes my pencil lines like white, so I could see them on a dark background if I wanted to. But I think I will, let's just maybe concentrate on the face for the smudging thing. If I pick a slightly lighter colour, and technical pen, whoops, what layer am I on? See, working on the wrong layer. I'm working on my pencil sketch layer instead of on this layer. So there, now you can see it a bit better. So what I did to this is then, if I work out where, by looking at this reference picture, where the light and dark areas are, and then just do those in very simply. So if I work out where the darkest areas are, and maybe do those with some black. So if I decide that under the chin is very dark, side of the face here is very dark. Where else? Sort of the side of the nose here. Maybe that bit of that side of the mouth there. Maybe even a little bit creeping into the chin. And I might go a shade up color-wise, so slightly less dark. And block in some of those areas where it's a bit lighter in the face. Make it bigger so I can do this a bit quicker. I always end up discovering that I should have started with a darker or lighter base colour than whichever one I put down, but it doesn't matter. And for something, go up to quite a light colour for where there's some light bits on the eyes, especially on that cheek, that bit of the chin, all this part of the face, a little bit there, maybe an in-betweeny kind of shade. So just really simply kind of chunking these in. I mean, this won't turn out probably as well as the one I did last night, but it's just to try and show you what I mean with the smudging. So now, if I want to start smudging this, what I'll do is go up and pick a smudge. I think at the moment, I've got one of my skin brushes selected, but really all it is quite a soft-edged brush, rather than a hard-edged one. So I think probably any of the painting ones might even be similar. Like a round brush, or trying to find a decent like-for-like example. I mean, I'll do it with the one I've got selected for now anyway. And I never have it too big, because if it's like really big and you start smudging, like it blurs everything together into just a muddy mess. So if I undo that, I have it a bit smaller, and I don't usually have the opacity all the way up. I just kind of, it's sort of a bit of a playing with it until you get it how you like it. But I guess it's almost a bit like, I mean, it's not a good analogy because I've never worked with oil paints, but depending on which way you kind of work with the brush, you're working that color or shade towards the others. So like if I start with this light shade here and brush from the light shade towards the dark shade, that's the way it's going to smudge it. That's where it's going to start smudging it that way. Again, coming out from this light shade and kind of just gently blending these two together. Similarly, if I started from the dark shade and blended towards the lighter color, same principle. The dark's going to be the one that's, I guess, dominant, working into the lighter shade. So depending on what you're trying to achieve, it sort of governs what direction you want to shade in. So I'm going to want to shade out from this light color to try and get that roundedness to the cheek shape. And hopefully this is a little bit more representative of how easy it can be to smudge things, because quite quickly you can start to get quite a nice kind of contoured shape to the face, and all you started with was some very quick rough areas kind of sketched in with a pen. And that's what I've been quite pleased to learn recently, is that I don't have to spend ages labouring with the Copic marker kind of ones that I had been working with, of building up and building up and building up, when I can just block in some very, very basic kind of colours like this, and then with sort of a bit of gentle smudging, start to get quite a decent looking face. And sometimes, like, you'll get to the end of doing all the smudging, and you might have sort of felt like you've overworked it a bit and everything is too smooth. But then what I find you can do is then just repeat the process, but with slightly more delicate additions. So you might go with, again, a light colour and quite a smaller pencil, and just work in something that you want to define a bit more, and then just smudge it a tiny bit to take the sharpness off it. So that's where I've sort of said in recent days where I'll draw in a line and then just smudge it slightly. All I'm literally doing is basically just smudging on top of it, so it keeps its shape as a line. It doesn't start blending it out completely into the thing, but it just makes it look less like a pen line right on top. So like at the end of it, if I want to redefine the line going through one of the eyes, like where the eye is closed, I can do that with a black pen once I've got everything that I want it to be blended underneath. I mean, I could do that on a separate layer, but when I'm happy enough with the face, and then just soften that line ever so slightly, just so it's less harsh. And it's just almost repeating that process of almost getting like a base layer of the contours of the face, and then going back and, like I would go back and add more detail into the mouth and soften it a little bit, and then maybe, again, like just touch in the darkest bits and the lightest bits. So again, this is just a quick version compared to yesterday, but you can start to see it's heading in the same direction, and it's, as much as the end result's very impressive, or talking myself up, the actual process isn't anything amazing. It's even like the headdress, to achieve that, all that was, if you look at it more closely, was I just got a big black brush and did lots of black circles, and then a grey brush and some grey markings on top of the black bits, and then a lighter grey again, did little dints on some of them, and you could do that very quickly, but sort of viewed from a distance or whatever, it looks much the same as if I sat there and laboriously drew every little nodule. And again, sometimes if they're too jagged, you could either work away and smudge them, or you could, again, if you're doing them on a layer, all I did was again use that Gaussian blur on that layer that the headdress is on, the layer option, and just slide it slightly to the right. And I'm on the wrong layer. See all this talk about being on the right layer. I keep doing it. So that's another thing. Like sometimes, like the changing the tech won't actually change what layer you're on. So if I turn that layer on, I suddenly think, oh great, I'm working on this layer now. I'm not. I'm still working on this one that I'm on. It's just changing the visibility of another layer. So again, all I did was go to the magic wand, Gaussian layer, and slide it, and it just made the headdress a little bit less sharp. And again, it starts to give that illusion of it being more complex than it actually is. Likewise, to just get that really metallic shine, as much as I've got some good highlights there already, I go on about it a lot, depending on what you end up using it on, just because I think it's really neat. If you go into Luminance and use the light pen and use a light colour, which I'm even remotely on the right layer, and start colouring in with that, where your highlights, that your really strong highlights are, it's just amazingly easy to get that metal kind of shine, and that's like 2 seconds work, and it looks like, oh wow, and it's really nothing that major. And yeah, I've learnt this quite recently, just through when I did all my black and white drawings. All I would do with these is take black and white photos, and I would use an application on the computer just to really bump the contrast up to make them really black and white, and that made it very easy for me to pick out where I was going to make things black, middle tone, and white, and just block in those shapes. And so with these ones, I literally drew a hard outline shape. I didn't end up blending them at all, and so that's why they're quite woodcut kind of looking. But then I discovered when I came to do this one, I did the same thing to start with. I picked like 3 tones for the skin of like a dark, a middle, and a light, and blocked them in, but then just started playing with the smudging. And that's all it led to, is just this discovery that just by doing very simple blocked in colours and then blending them together a bit, it's the result you can achieve. And again, you can sort of see with this one, like then where you've gone back and redefined bits around the nose or around the eyes more sharply so that it doesn't look too smooth overall. Yeah. I guess if you want to play around with just picking 2 or 3 colours, like a really dark colour, oops, still on the light pen, and then just scribbling in a couple of other shades. I mean, they can even be different colours, they don't have to be shades of the same colour, but... And then just getting a smudge brush and just playing around with blending them together to sort of see how it works in terms of getting a feel for what size of brush you like, what type of brush you like, you know, how, like, what direction to start blending stuff in to get the effect that you want. And that's, now I realise that video that I did for the clouds probably wasn't terribly helpful, because all you were seeing was it just smudging, 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 where again all that was drawing a black cloud, putting some different shades of grey on it, and then just, you know, playing about with blending those in different directions to change the shape of the cloud, or how much detail you wanted in it, where the lights and darks were, that kind of thing. And it was very quick to just do that 3-tone process and smudge it. Anyway, that's a long rambling explanation, so I will post that. I won't do one for today's drawing, I'll probably do that a bit later on, but the girls have asked to draw cats today, so I might just draw a cartoony kind of one for that, which will be pretty straightforward, or if I end up doing something furry, it'll probably wind up being much like the owl anyway. So hopefully you have better luck today. And yeah, as I say, if you get a problem file again, either just send me the file or try and record it. I have someone dancing around flapping at me out the corner of my eye, so I will stop that there and post the video.